Okay, welcome to the American Forked Podcast. This is our November episode.
Ooh.
It's kind of hard to focus on one specific thing right now because we've got a lot going on. We'll kind of talk about those. I mean, as far as like what's going on in the world and locally and stuff. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But first off, my name is, I'm going to be Prince William today.
What?
Oh.
Not really.
Were we supposed to come with a character?
So I get random spam texts all the time from someone who claims to be
Prince William.
Delia is her name.
Delia.
And she'll send a picture and it's some Asian.
What dating website are you on? You're married, Jake.
It's weird.
What just happened?
Happens all the time. I get pictures.
Jake!
They say,
are you laying the ground
they just sent a
rules for
picture
your
that
life?
says, hi. And I said, oh, hey, Margaret.
Jake,
just
I'm calling your wife after
You're
this
supposed to
recording.
stay off those websites.
No, I think they get my information from WhatsApp.
WhatsApp?
Yeah.
What's that?
It's like a texting app
that you can use and hide everything you say on there when you're
Apparently-
crazy, right?
apparently
Republican.
encrypted, kind of like Telegram or Group.
Oh, yeah. It's one of those things that's like, come to us, we'll encrypt your information, and they give it right over the government.
Yeah.
We're not
Sell
going
it
to
to
share
China.
anything.
It's the only communication texting app that they allow in China.
Oh.
But anyways, I always get spam
When are you
texts
going to
from
China?
people. I'm not. Apparently I am. But she said hi. I said, oh, hey, Margaret, not knowing who it was. She said, I'm Delia. Have you forgotten me? Aren't you Lisa? And then she sent me a photo, which is clean, by the way, for those who are listening.
Especially your mom.
I said, I can be Lisa if you want. She said, you are such a nice person. Hope my wrong number doesn't bother you in your life. We can be friends if you don't mind.
He's scrolling through like hundreds of
we had
texts.
a conversation
Hold on a second.
today.
Did we start a podcast already?
We did. Sorry.
Oh.
So that
You know
anyways,
your wife can hear this, right?
I told her my name's William. I said I'm Prince William, and so we're texting. She thinks that I'm Prince William.
Okay.
So
I love that you
Great.
think it's a she.
That's so
no, it's probably
Yeah.
it's probably not. It's probably from some 42-year-old guy.
So this is how you're introducing yourself. You're Jake.
I'm Jake.
I'm totally wrapped up in this weird fantasy online.
Is this
thing.
not some other dude in your ward? This sounds totally like Mormon play.
I don't have the phone.
I've
number
heard
on my
about
phone.
this.
I get these texts all the time, and
You
I
need
just
to
play
shut that
back.
app off.
Yeah, I should.
Okay. Who else is here, Jake?
We have Phil.
What's up?
Phil's with me.
I'm over here just listening to this. I
Train
hope
wreck?
Stacy's not listening.
Oh, I post the images of these on.
You send them all to her.
on
Smart.
Yeah.
Deny. Get out ahead of it. I like this.
on Instagram all the time.
Yeah, I'd be divorced. I come home, my wife goes through my phone. Yep. Okay, you're good.
You guys have
Your
a
wife goes through your phone?
That'd be a red flag right there. Yeah,
For what?
because she needs
A
to know it.
laundry
Like
service?
you know that thing. Remember that
Insecurity.
woman Lorena Bobbitt?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
We know who that is.
She needs a
That's like-
reason to do it?
That's like my wife. If I ever cheated or anything,
Hey,
so
our guest
if
is
it-
never coming back to this show
if it
ever.
happened, you'll know who it is.
Well,
like-
of course we will.
If I'm dead,
We're surprised you're getting laid by your wife. Now we're going to expect other girls are going to
yeah,
do it?
it doesn't make sense to me. But
So hi, Phil.
I'm here too. You had a long intro, so why couldn't I?
Okay. Phil Bobbitt. And Jeff.
Hi.
How are you?
That's my whole intro.
Thanks,
Hi.
Jeff.
Hi.
We also have our special guest, Eric. Hi, Eric.
Hey, it's great to be here. Eric
And-
Ellis.
Glad you're here. We'll get into a lot more about you later. We have got Trent with us.
Hi.
Hi, Trent.
Hey, Trent.
Thanks for coming.
I don't have Asians.
So we hope you guys listened to our last episode. We were recording from just north of Skinwalker Ranch.
Oh yeah,
And we had a really cool discussion about that kind of stuff that occurs at Skinwalker Ranch. And we experienced some pretty nifty things while we were there.
Yeah, I'll say if you haven't listened, go listen because we either saw a legitimate full blown skinwalker or it was a house cat.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's 60-40.
Or like a campground cat.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking it was a skinwalker.
But the
That's all I'm
cat
saying.
didn't react to the laser pointer that I had there, so it was probably a skinwalker.
Yeah. That's our
That's true.
scientific.
He pointed it in front of it, wiggled it around. Usually
Didn't care.
cats like go after it.
This
But
is the
because
sign of
it's like
Skinwalker?
one of Satan's spawn or whatever.
Uh-huh.
He just stared right through it like it didn't exist.
Mhm. So
That was our scientific research.
So we
did.
saw a skinwalker, a UFO, and had some pretty phenomenal things occur.
How were those
Long-
mushrooms you guys took?
No comment.
Shiitakes.
That was episode 89, and now we're at 90.
Ooh,
90th episode.
This is episode 90.
Wow.
We're approaching our 2-year mark coming up here soon. But anyway, we appreciate you guys listening to the show. As always, we start with some local news, and we've got some things in American Fork, actually, that are going on.
Oh, yeah.
The American Fork Marching Band, in case you didn't know,
One.
is really good.
Oh.
They won regionals.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And they've won it a lot. If you
Regionals.
go into the band room and you see all their trophies, it's like, oh,
What-
you guys do this a lot.
So what are regionals? Is that like northern Utah Valley?
No, it's like Western United States.
No, I think they're in Indianapolis right now, or they were competing.
So everything west of the Mississippi is the regional.
Probably, yeah.
But the I think they listed, let's see, the top 10, and they're all from Utah, California, and Nevada.
Wow.
And American Fork took first with a score of 90.3. Second place was 86.9. And
Oh,
everyone
so they
else was
sucked.
Pretty close.
Second
to that.
place was the first place loser.
Is
Yeah.
is anyone else here like confused as to why marching band is a thing?
Yeah, what do you do if your kid comes home and says, "Hey, I want to be in a marching band," and then the next day, like, wants to change their gender? Like, you have a couple things you got to decide. You got to let one happen.
Can we take those subjects one at a time, please?
I get it. I get it from like the kid side because a lot of kids get into it and like it, and the parents are into it. But marching music, nobody listens to. Am I right? in
You don't
saying
have a
that?
marching band CD
Nobody's
pop in on
got
the drive.
like, yeah, no one's like rocking.
Now that's
out.
what I call marching band music.
You did not
Six.
hear
Six.
2 Chain's new album?
2 Chain.
Yeah.
No,
He's got a marching band song on there.
I've always wondered that because that's like a big thing in schools, colleges, marching
Yeah.
band.
Isn't it the same
But
music they
nobody's
play for
listening
like
to it.
orchestra and the other band too?
Yeah,
No.
but people
Sitting
listen
band.
to
People listen.
orchestral music.
Yeah.
You
Like-
don't, but smarter
Not real people.
Oh,
Like if you go through the dial, you'll find like classical music, right?
yeah.
Is it-
But you're not going to find a marching band.
Are you referring
Philip
to
Sousa,
FM radio.
Yeah, FM. Thanks, Jake.
You say the dial. A lot
Oh,
of
I'm sorry.
young
is the
listeners may not know what the dial is.
That's true.
Do they not have parents?
Mm-mm.
That's their job to
That's
teach.
actually the
Parents
biggest
don't teach
problem.
kids about
probably.
radio.
Yeah, I guess my children wouldn't even know because it's just a button on
The
my
touch screen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but you used to.
That's why I try and buy old cars so that I can teach my kids what a dial is. That's the main. That's the
The
main
old-
goal. Yeah.
There you go. Anyway, sorry to derail your.
It's all right. So
Momentum.
when they do marching band competitions, I'm sure music is part of it, but there's overall performance and uniqueness.
No, they're very like dedicated. It takes a
Oh, yeah.
lot of work. Like I get that.
Yeah.
but
My
Just the-
daughter's.
The result, I was just gonna say, like, why not like something everyone listens to? Like,
Like Imagine Dragons.
yeah, we'll throw some Imagine Dragons on there. Everyone can go out and 50 guitars, 50 snare drums.
Sounds
You
like
know
a
what I mean?
disaster. My daughter's band instructor, she goes to school up here in Salt Lake, and anyway, her director went down with them, so he's part of that whole. It seems like every school that's very serious about band is involved with American Fork somehow. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but it seems that way to me. There's
They're
a lot
like-
of people connected to it,
American Fork's like the New York Yankees of marching band.
but no one likes them. Or
Didn't Miller
No,
retire?
they're like they're always like
why wouldn't you say the
really
Houston
good and
Astros?
well funded.
They won the World Series.
Are
didn't
Are they cheating?
Oh, they're like the the Patriots.
Yeah, Miller. John Miller. Was it John Miller?
I think so.
Retired a few
Steve
years
Miller
back.
Band.
But they're still killing it, I guess. The new guys going right
Yeah,
at
the
it.
American Fork. So there are also superlatives that they do on top of the ranking, and American Fork got outstanding music performance and outstanding general effect, and the other one was outstanding visual performance, which was won by Westlake, which took third overall.
Yeah.
Westlake High School in Utah.
But seriously, any everyone here, have you guys actually been to one of these competitions?
Yeah.
You have, Trent?
My brother and sister were in it, upsettingly enough.
It's okay. So you're a no-go. You don't
In
like
high school,
Have you
they
guys
were.
been to, have you guys been to these competitions?
No,
Have you been to one?
I've never been to one.
Oh,
but I've seen them at football games and stuff.
it's like if you just went to some concert and it was like some country concert, you never heard of them. As long as they're good, you're gonna have a good time, and it's really cool.
Trent's shaking his head.
Shut his mic off real quick because I don't want a contradicting opinion. But no, it's
Cancel him.
actually really cool. I think it's really cool.
No, I think so. And the drum lines are cool.
Super cool.
I just pointing out that like
It is weird.
there's a lot of effort, fluff about it, but
There's
Nobody
nothing
listens
else you
to
could
it.
do. Literally not one other thing you could do
Oh, there's
besides
lot
go
of
to a
other
band thing.
things. There's a lot of other things. In fact,
you just
I've
said
done
you
other
went to a
things.
band thing.
I had to. My sister and brother were in it.
Oh, that's right.
There was nothing else he could do.
You
My
nev-
mother
you-
put me in the car and took me to it.
I've actually been doing other things for 23 years. I haven't been to one for that long,
It says how good they are.
but I actually want to go to one again.
Let's go right now.
Okay, American Fork Marching Band's good.
All right.
Yep.
They're the
The
best.
I want the last 15 minutes of my life back.
Also super local. The restoration of the G on the mountain in Pleasant Grove is well underway. So if you have looked in that area, you'll notice the G is gone.
Oh,
I
Right
did
now.
notice actually, and I was like, "Wow, they're giving up."
You can see just the outline of it, but they basically, I think they stripped it of all of the innards, all of
Mhm.
I didn't.
they
notice
gutted
that.
it.
Isn't it just concrete?
I thought it was just rocks that
I-
were spray painted.
I think that's what it used to be, but recently it's like aluminum strips that are white or something like that. Anyways, I think they tore it all out, and now they're in the process of restoring it all.
That's cool. I'm a big proponent for Linden to get an L because you've heard this, right?
Yeah, the ugly.
The Wasatch Front with U for University of Utah, G for Pleasant Grove, L for Linden, and then Y for BYU. It would just say ugly across the whole Wasatch
Yeah.
Front.
That is funny.
Thank you. That sounded genuine.
And Linden's right in the right spot against the mountain there.
Mm-hmm.
So this
need their own school.
this restoration project is costing proposed to cost
$13.2.
$800,000,
Oh,
and $700,000 is they expect to come from donations. The remaining $100,000 will be paid by Pleasant Grove
taxpayers.
City's general fund.
Taxpayers.
So in other words, yeah,
800,000. Is it dead babies they're putting up there? What are they putting up there?
Well, you got to hike everything up there.
they're
That's
using
true.
That costs you $800,000.
they're actually using helicopters to get it up and back and
Well,
forth.
if a guy
so-
can carry 4 2x4s and it takes him an hour and a half to hike up there,
Okay, you've
how
seen
many
the
guys do you need?
You've seen the Home Depot trucks for $19.99 an hour. Home Depot helicopters, way more than that. Way more.
There's not a bit like, but they won't give kids at school free lunch.
Nope.
They need a G up there, Trent.
Okay.
How will people know that city starts with a G?
It doesn't start with a G.
it doesn't.
Where's the P?
Well, the last half of it does.
Why not put an E? It ends with an E.
Yeah, that's true.
I think
Why
didn't
is
it used to be
G?
called the Grove? Was the city's name at the
Maybe.
beginning? think.
I bet the P was copyright already. Copyright.
The letter P.
Yeah, that's why they couldn't do it.
I think Shakespeare.
You put a little
Took that one.
circle with a TM on the inside.
Why wouldn't it be PG?
It's that would be $1.6 million.
Oh, yeah. I get it.
They said
Yeah.
it would have costed over $1 million if they would have contracted it out, but a lot of the work is donated, like volunteer work,
That's cool.
plus helicopter cost.
To haul up little plastic tin things.
Mhm.
There's a goat. Not goats. There are goats too, but there's like mules that haul it up there for nothing.
You should
Well-
have reached out to the Pleasant Grove and said, "Look, I've got 3 goats that can pull up
Nothing. But
One
someone else
sheet-
has large
a
size
single
goats.
sheet of."
One
Yeah.
sheet per season.
So if you noticed that there are a lot of helicopters flying around Utah Valley, that's partially why
Yeah.
they're doing that restoration.
Cool.
What a waste
And
of
Trent
money.
is all about it.
Trent loves it.
Full support.
That could
No,
be a great park.
I agree. I actually think they're kind of ugly when you drive around and see a big letter on the mountain. I don't know.
What the ugly ones are like when they just local high school or community college put a bunch of rocks up there and they're all falling apart.
The uglier ones are, I can't remember where it is, mountain, when you're heading out like toward Mount Pleasant from Nephi, those little
Yeah.
towns.
Mhm.
Seems like
Mhm.
there's one in there that has like a little hill right by the town and the letter is on it and it's like as big as the hill. So all you see is like a giant letter.
That's just the guy's name. It's like Kevin. He put a
Oh.
K up there.
I get it.
Yeah.
But
1920 is when that the G was put on the mountain.
oh,
So let's go statewide. Utah State, the official Utah State flag. Well, the officially proposed Utah State flag has been is now ready. Has been approved by the Utah State Flag Task Force,
That's our flag now?
and it's now just waiting for Utah State legislators' approval.
I like the. Didn't they have another one when they were doing this early on that was simpler and
There
not
were
as
several.
dumb?
Yeah, there were 5 or 6 that they let people vote for.
I
Okay,
mean,
what-
it's not terrible because after you look at it a minute, you're like, okay, it's mountains.
This
What's-
is
What's the little star thing on there? Is that supposed to be a snowflake?
That's probably like Brigham Young's
Twinkle in his eye?
twinkle. Is what I
Okay.
think.
each point represents 3 wives. So maybe is that?
Wow.
Don't we have a sister city in China?
Oh yeah,
We do?
What? Oh, I was like, what's going on?
That's the
I don't
one.
get it.
That's the city. That's the city. So for those of you who aren't watching for some reason,
Because it's a podcast,
it's an
maybe?
audio podcast. It's now red, white, and blue. It's got red like the valley, and then white mountains in the middle, and then a dark blue, navy blue background, and then there's a 1, 2, 3, 4 hexagon in the middle
Uh-huh.
with it's like a golden blue hexagon with a beehive.
I get that hexagon now because that would be like a bee reference,
Mhm.
right?
Oh, yeah.
And then there's a beehive, which is
Yeah.
a Mormon.
It's very
reference.
intentional, but I'm curious to know what that.
Is the beehive
Star
a Mormon
is.
reference?
Yeah, it's they called it Deseret. That's why before Utah was Utah, it was the territory of Deseret.
But that's
Is
not
that-
a Mormon
is that right?
reference. That's a Mormon.
What does that have to do? Deseret means bees?
Yeah, honeybees in the Book of Mormon.
It really
so
does.
it's a
Remember that
made up
book?
thing.
No,
yeah,
it's
I remember
real.
that made up book.
Remember that book?
Wow.
It's real. I have it.
It's a real book that exists, Trent. I have one too, actually.
But yeah, that's what that's what the honey bee thing is. It's because
I thought it was supposed to represent industry,
well, it was when the pioneers came over, they were very industrious. But
and they're
that-
not, and we're not anymore.
when
No,
they
We're
when they
calling them industrious?
when they chose that symbol, they called it Deseret. I could be.
I know,
wrong, but-
you're right. But
Yeah.
anyway, that's cool.
Where do we find literal beehives that look like that?
Yeah.
I
Oh,
know,
like
yeah,
perfect.
for real, huh?
The dome.
That
Yeah.
are stacked up
Nowhere.
like that, like Winnie the Pooh.
It
eats.
should just be a wood box.
That's
It's
a
just
valid
a whole-
question.
We're like hung from a tree upside down. They're not stacked up like that.
Yeah, it's kind of like a tornado-y bowling ball thing.
I wonder if that was now when we have a beehive, it's like a rectangle, like a man-made beehive. I wonder if they used to make them like that. Like the man-made ones were domed for some reason.
It'd be worth looking up.
And I will continue to wonder. I will not look it up.
Why isn't it just a wooden box now? That's what a beehive is.
Just a rectangle white with a slot on the bottom.
Yeah.
That looks like it wasn't primed or sanded before you painted it.
It's been deeply weathered.
Yeah. So Utah we're gonna get a new flag, and that's probably the new one.
And I have an old one
Beginning.
for sale because it's a collector's item now. So
Mhm.
go on.
Nationwide news: Paul Pelosi was attacked a couple weeks
Oh,
ago.
that's right.
Oh no, Paul.
For those
How
of you who
how
don't
do
know,
all of you
that's-
Republicans feel about all of your people coming out and being like so happy he got attacked?
What do you mean your people?
Your people.
What do you mean, your people?
I actually don't know. Paul is
Paul is Nancy Pelosi, who is the Speaker of the House. It's her
Mhm.
husband.
Like 82 years old.
And he was
Uh-huh.
recently arrested on DUI.
Yeah,
And ran
about a
in-
month before that,
Ran
I
into
think.
someone, and
and the world's
I was going to
greatest.
say killed him, but I don't know if that's true.
No, he didn't kill him.
He's also the world's greatest stock trader, right?
Yeah, he's made a lot of money in illegally trading stocks. Yes.
Yeah, don't just throw
Mhm.
that word around. I mean,
But yeah, they came in the house. They're like, "Where's Nancy?" First name basis. This attacker was, and then she was nowhere to be found. So he beat him up. Is that
oh,
Yeah.
this is a home invasion.
yeah, in his
the
house.
police.
Oh.
So it's kind of like a really weird, sketchy situation. Apparently, the police arrived to his house. It was like 2:30 in the morning, and
It's her house too, though, right?
their
Okay.
house in San Francisco. And I guess the police knocked on the door. Paul came to the door and opened it up, and he did not seem to indicate there was an emergency of any sort. And apparently, Paul Pelosi had a hammer in his hand, and he turned his back to the police officer and walked back into the house toward the guy who was, I guess, waiting for Nancy Pelosi to come home.
What?
Because he was just a maniac, crazy guy. Apparently, that just anyway.
That had access to their home address somehow.
Don't these people
And-
have like border walls and armed guards?
You'd think that they would
all the
have
things they're against.
So they did.
security.
They actually had Capitol security.
Yeah,
that,
they would.
that monitored their home, like through the cameras and stuff. And they say that the cameras weren't running at that time, or they weren't
Interesting.
being monitored, or something like that. But
Kind of like
Wow.
the Jeffrey Epstein situation.
yeah, so of course it sparked a lot of conspiracy theories. And,
Yeah.
and Elon Musk famously tweeted, "What'd he say? There's probably more to this story than you know," and everyone's all
Yeah,
mad about it.
Elon Musk tweeted like somebody else's post basically saying that, alluding to Paul Pelosi having come back to the house from a local gay bar with this guy who ended up attacking him. And that's I think that's the story that Elon Musk had retweeted or
Oh,
something.
okay.
And he said there's more to the story than what meets the eye or whatever. But anyway, it was just this weird situation. The guy ended up pulling the hammer from Paul Pelosi's hands and hit him with it, and there was a scuffle. And I don't know why the police didn't just shoot him, but other than him, Paul Pelosi being in the hospital for like a week.
Oh, they were there while they were fighting?
Yeah.
Like they showed up, they're like, let's see how this plays out.
Apparently there
I
was
know.
no scuffle or fighting at all until after the police officer arrived.
I know why they didn't shoot him, because they called the psychologist and they were on their way, and
They called the
they
police.
Just waited for him.
They called the police and asked them to keep their guns at the door.
Yeah.
But that's not what happened. That's what
Oh.
I'm saying. But
Oh.
anyway, that was a big deal, and he's out of the hospital, so that's good. I'm glad he's okay.
And she was reelected, right?
Was she up for re-election?
I don't think she
Uh,
was.
Isn't she a congresswoman?
She is Speaker of the House. Yeah,
Yeah, wasn't
call-
all of Congress up for election?
No.
Oh. It was.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she was.
Every
All-
2 years.
all two. Okay,
So was she reelected
What,
then?
200
I guess she
and-
was.
I think so.
240.
200
How many
40 years?
congressmen is there? Are there
400 and
235?
something.
Or
436.
or something?
We do a
436?
podcast called
436.
436. There you
Yeah.
go.
Remember that if you're looking at Fox News, they've got the 218
I know
as the
218
dividing
is
line.
the majority medium point. Anyway,
I think there's two
so yeah, I
Many.
guess that they're all up for re-election every
2 years.
mid
Yeah,
midterm.
she was reelected.
Good.
You're welcome.
So
but
glad.
but the
fact.
senators are not every.
Only 35 of them, I believe, were up for reelection.
Yeah, one in Utah.
Yeah.
And we
Right,
did
Trent?
not elect Egg McMuffin.
Egg and McMuffin.
Egg McMuffin.
Jake's favorite non-Democrat was not elected.
He was the guy voted for president like 12 years ago, or whenever he ran.
Two.
First time against Trump.
Oh, it was the first time?
10 years ago?
Oh, has that been 10 years?
No way.
No,
Serious?
six.
Oh yeah, because Trump was in only one term.
Math. What's
Even
next?
though he's been your prophet for longer than that.
Egg McMuffin?
Trump.
Oh.
Don't you pray to him at night?
Oh yeah, I forgot.
You can't pray
Not
to
every
him.
night.
He only
You
forgets.
just
during
pray
the day.
while holding a statue of him in your
Yeah,
left
yeah.
hand.
The Trump doll in a diaper. You've seen it.
Yeah, I have too.
Trent thinks we all worship Donald Trump.
Only
Even though
based
we-
on what you say.
We,
The only reason I think that.
we have said that Donald Trump did a lot of good things as president, but I will again go on the record to say he is a narcissist and very, very selfish, and I do not like that in a leader.
No, I said Joseph Smith or Trump, and you said banging Trump for sure. There's no
Oh yeah,
question.
right.
I will bring the
remember
audio
that
back.
discussion.
Hotornot.com, you gave him a 12
Yeah.
out of 10. That seems like you're in love with him.
Yeah, I'm glad that this is all true.
It's being recorded. It has to be true.
It's being broadcast.
It's on the interwebs.
Anyone who can click on it.
Finally, our world news. Turns out that China wants to shoot down Elon Musk. I was looking in the worldwide military news, and China has unveiled an anti-drone system, radar, that could detect satellite things such as Starlink. So I think the Starlink link to this new technology is only supposed, but China now in the world of satellite capabilities, China has developed a new drone detecting device that
Satellite detecting device.
satellite detecting device that essentially would allow them to have greater defense in a case of a global war.
But thank God we're the first people to have a Space Force, because we're probably
Yeah.
way beyond them
Yeah.
with our Space Force.
Yeah, Steve Carell is a great leader of the Space Force.
I actually love that show on Netflix. It's really good.
We know you do.
It's pretty funny,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah, well, I knew they'd be concerned eventually, because if there's free internet floating around, obviously their citizens are going to be into that. So,
Yeah, and I think at least, was it Russia that said that, or Elon Musk said he's going to allow free internet to Ukrainians, or one of the country, either Russia or Ukraine, and everyone was up in arms about that. And
well, the big stink was they wanted him to censor Russian stuff and kick Russians off of it, specifically like Russian military and stuff. And he said, no, free speech is
That's
free
what it was,
speech. So Ukraine can use it, Russia can use it.
Yeah.
Which I'm all for. I think it should just
It's
be
free speech as long as you're not Kathy Griffin
yeah.
pretending to be Elon Musk.
Or, well, there you go.
yeah, it was funny.
Well, when you're the king of information, you can be as hypocritical as you want.
Right.
I think several years ago when he started to develop Starlink, Elon Musk was known for saying his goal is to have essentially internet free for everybody. And so even though Starlink, you do pay for it, right, Trent? I know you've
he
used
continues to
Starlink
charge it
before.
Yeah.
So I don't know what his maybe that's just initially, as they're developing it, they're going to charge people, and then once it's making money, then they'll make it free to. I don't know.
No,
how it's
it'll
gonna
never
work.
be free.
Most likely not.
Ever.
Especially
Usually-
now that he's like in the hole already over
He's
Twitter.
looking to file bankruptcy already.
Yeah.
As the new owner of Twitter, I declare bankruptcy.
I paid too much.
Here's my kitchen sink. But yeah, he
That's
also
cool.
owns Twitter now since the last time we.
Yeah, we haven't talked about that. But apparently, so the whole Kathy Griffin thing, apparently none of the policy has changed yet in Twitter. Everything's still as of this recording, everything
I
is
don't
still
think that's true. Because
I
the
think so.
use of the N-word went up, they said like 500%.
Well, what they're claiming is it actually takes too long to rewrite the code. That's why, like he was saying, that we haven't put Donald Trump back on or any of that stuff, because we have to actually change how the thing thinks or whatever.
Was stuff like foul language and N-word and things was that all not usable before, or is it like?
I honestly have no idea.
Or did a tweet, if it contained certain words, was it just flagged, or I don't know?
I've never been on Twitter. No clue.
I haven't either. But
We could test it.
This story about Twitter brought to you
Follow
by
American
four guys that have never been on Twitter.
Follow
Yeah.
American Forked Podcast, where we use as many 4-letter words as we can. on
I
Twitter.
asked Beagle, I'm like, so is Twitter still dumb? And he didn't say anything.
Because he was on Twitter.
Yeah.
He wasn't texting.
There's a new competitor to Twitter that a lot of people are now apparently flocking to.
Yeah. called
Pun intended.
Flock?
Pitter.
Is it called
Twitter.
Flock?
No, it's paranoia or something.
Paranoia? That sounds like a terrible
What a-
marketing strategy.
What a perfect name for a social media
Anyway, it's
platform.
it's a social media platform that I've never heard of, but apparently it's getting a lot of followers because people are leaving.
Oh,
It's
well.
called Zombification. You should check it out.
and,
Called
and
WhatsApp.
and along those lines, Facebook is failing. Apparently,
Oh, really?
well, they laid off I want to say 70,000 people. Maybe that's a wrong number.
I think it's
Might
like
have been
11,000.
7.
Yeah, it was a lot.
Really?
Yeah, it was a lot.
I mean, they
of,
probably weren't doing anything.
well, that's what they're saying. Well, he tried this imaginary universe,
The meta world or
yeah,
whatever.
meta, and it was a horrible flop. And I guess he got pretty
Are they-
heavy into that.
I
So
thought they're still banking on that though.
no, he pretty much came out publicly to his shareholders and said, "Sorry,
Meta was a mistake.
yeah,
Instead of Meta,
Changing.
we're just going to come out with our own marijuana strand.
We're just
yeah, something."
our own vodka.
So I don't know, but that's worrying. Facebook's
Yeah.
got to be one of the country's top employers.
And
But do we care
I
about
don't
Facebook?
think
What is
that's
Facebook?
worrying.
Besides stealing your info, what do you care?
I agree with that. What I'm worried about is however many thousand
Employment,
jobs
all
that
the
are
jobs.
suddenly.
I'm
we
not
should
worried
not
at
have
all.
unemployment. We need 10% people unemployed
Why?
because 10% of the nation is unemployable.
as long as that 10%.
These fucking
the ones that
idiots are
aren't
just
working.
walking around with jobs now. They do not need them.
Here's what I'd say. I
Yeah.
hope 70,000 people, or however many you just said, that got fired from it. Hopefully they all become plumbers and welders and framers.
Oh, they
because-
totally will.
Yeah, that's what they're going to contribute
They
to
were just
society,
waiting
right?
for their
No, yeah.
opportunity to become plumbers.
They
Yeah.
worked at Facebook to get through trade school.
Mhm.
Now that they have their
All of them.
welding degree, they're probably going to contribute to the infrastructure
Yeah.
of this country.
They're going to continue to get their freaking handout like every other person is.
Yeah, my point is they're not going to do any of that crap. They're going to go work for, Novell, or I don't know what all the companies are.
Novell, this brought to you by 1990. What the hell are you talking about?
Novell.
He changed the name so it sounded slightly smarter
What is
instead
it
of
called?
Novell.
What's it called?
You call it Novell like it's a French company. It's
Yeah.
Novell.
No, I'm talking about the chocolate comes in a jar. Nutella?
Nutella?
I'm just kidding.
Nutella.
Novell. Is it called Novell?
It's not called Novell.
No,
Novell.
Novell.
Noble.
Novell.
Novell.
Okay.
Novell.
But Twitter did this. Elon Musk did the same thing. He fired was it half of their workforce? And he said the reason was because we had way too many developers and not enough, or way
Well-
too many managers and not enough developers.
The original, whoever the dude was
Jack
that-
Dorsey,
Yeah, he came out pretty much and said, "Hey,
you're
that's
right.
actually my fault.
Yeah, he's like,
I
he apologized.
way overhired,
Yeah,
and all he's doing is correcting the screw up that I did."
yeah. So he's like I think his intent was to go in and clean up the swamp, but
I think
now they're starting to trying to hire back some of them because I think he fired way too many people.
Elon Musk did.
Yeah,
Oh,
It's so weird that Jack Dorsey's backing a guy that just made him a billionaire or whatever. Right?
right.
yeah.
Yeah.
I would do it. I wouldn't care. If you paid me, yeah, I screwed up. You deal with it.
Yeah.
You're the one
Right.
who looked under my skirt to see if you
My-
want to buy me or not.
My bad.
I'm just a franchisee of Papa John's now over here. Like, you just go do your thing.
Yeah, it's just me and McAfee hanging out here in Columbia.
I'm just running Papa John's and Jersey Mike's.
That guy just died, didn't he?
Yeah, a couple
McAfee?
years ago. Yeah,
No,
Yeah.
I thought it was recent.
I think it was like a year or two
Oh,
ago.
maybe.
So we have Eric Ellis with us. Eric is the executive director of the Utah Lake Commission. And we have had quite a few discussions on this show about Utah Lake and the future of Utah Lake and the history and what's going on. And so I figured Eric is a neighbor of mine, and I thought that him being on the show would be quite appropriate.
Yeah, we're
And-
excited to have you on because
Yeah,
we
we've-
got some good questions for you.
I at least have questions.
Yeah.
At least. We'll see if your answers
We'll see if
match.
they're good.
But I get so the first question we have is what is the objective of the Utah Lake Commission?
The objective of the commission was really, we had all kinds of entities, cities that all had their own perspective on what should be done to clean up the lake. And Provo realized that if they did everything that they could, it wasn't going to have an impact on this 97,000 acre lake. And so for a couple decades, there was this thought of we need to unify and focus our efforts so that it has purpose and can be effective. And so the commission was designed to unify that effort to improve the lake, improve perceptions of the lake, and make it something that everybody could enjoy.
And what is the commission? Is it a private entity? Is it a public like organization? How does that?
Yeah, so interesting that the Utah Lake Commission is actually in its last 8 months of existence. But it is an entity that it's called an interlocal. So it's got 16 cities, Utah County, and then 4 state agencies, and Central Utah Water Project, or Central Utah Water Conservancy Project, all as a interlocal that act together and it makes us sort of like a district, like a special service district.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's what it is now. It is becoming the Utah Lake Authority. This last legislative session, a bill was brought forth to create the Utah Lake Authority. And so we are now in the transition process. So we're acting as the Lake Commission for the last few months while we develop the Lake Authority and get it all up and running. And then sometime in the spring, we'll dissolve the Lake Commission and just start acting as the Utah Lake Authority.
Now, when you say legislature, is that at a state level?
Yes.
So it's a state thing now instead of like this inter-city thing, the state's kind of taken over. Is that?
Yeah, the state really just finally came to the table and said, hey, we recognize that this is a state asset and that we should be doing more from the state level to invest in that and recognize it. And so they created the Utah Lake Authority. The unique thing, I think, that created some controversy up front was that the authorities in the state, there's a variety of them. Some of them have been not as well received as others, I'll say, and have been controversial. The Inland Port Authority, for example, you've read in the news about all their chaotic meetings. Unlike those, the Utah Lake Authority has local control. So the majority of the board members are Utah County specific individuals that were selected so that it could have local control but be a state political subdivision of the state.
So it's going to be a state thing, but everyone running it will be local.
The vast majority. So it has some governor's appointees. It has a representative from the Senate and from the House of Representatives, but both of those have to be Utah County specific folks. And then pretty much everybody else is from the valley here. So,
And what's your guys' drive? Like, what are you trying to make that island or the causeway, or like what's the?
Really, it's kind of the Utah Lake Commission 2.0. So it's a better funded version of the Lake Commission with very similar goals. We're in the midst of doing a management plan that will identify all the different projects that we could do to improve access, improve water quality, improve the shoreline, create economic development opportunities for lakeshore communities, really make it a place that people want to go instead of heading up into the canyons to play bumper boats in our overpacked reservoirs.
Right.
So, and like Trent was saying, your commission would be one of the ones, because we hear about this thing in the news that like, these companies want to come in and make this big island out there, but they're going to dredge up and clean up the lake. Your organization is who would approve or disprove that, or who studies that, or how are you involved in that?
Good question. So the proposal that was before the state to create multiple islands and do kind of a comprehensive restoration project, that was the responsibility of the Sovereign Lands Office. So the Division of Forestry, Fire, and State Lands had the responsibility to evaluate that proposal, kind of in partnership with the Army Corps of Engineers because there's wetlands involved, and come up with a recommendation. And so they came up with a recommendation. They found some legal issues with the proposal. That it's really the disposal of land that they had issue with. And so they issued a recommendation, or a record of decision, technically. And that was to not proceed at this time that group is able to appeal that and come back with a different type of proposal or a different application. But specifically, when our legislation to create the Utah Lake Authority came forward, because that was a pretty controversial issue, it was retained by the Division of Forestry, Fire, and State Lands so that we could get to work on implementing all the other things that are possible to enhance and improve the lake.
How do you plan on bringing like boats back in the lake when the boat, it's like so shallow, or obviously have like the lake level going down? Like, how do you, or not you, but how does the group plan on making an impact to that?
That is a fantastic question, and this is where dredging, should not be a 4-letter word. We need to figure out. We've got areas in the lake, for example, up at the north end where the canal companies draw water from, that actually have to dredge on a fairly frequent basis. Most of our marinas, every, let's say, 10 years or so, could use a dredging. What you do out in the middle of the lake becomes a whole ginormous problem to deal with, because a 97,000 acre lake, it's sort of a number that people don't wrap their heads around, but it is not a small lake at all. And every foot of material that you would dredge off the bottom of that creates a mountain somewhere, or an island in the previous case, right? And so you really just, the only way that, if there's going to be a dredging effort, you really have to keep that material in the lake, or else you render all your marinas useless because now they're high and dry. And so it's a complex issue. I don't know that we're going to tackle deepening the lake anytime soon, with public dollars, especially because of the cost. We're going to focus on making sure that our marinas are perfect, that they're deep enough, that they're not the problem for you getting out to the lake. Historically, people rip props off as they're leaving the marina because it's the shallowest part of the lake, and that's the last time they ever come to the lake, and we don't want to see that happen.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and I'd never thought about this before, but most of Utah Lake is like relatively shallow, right? Just a couple
10
of
feet deep on average.
Yeah.
When it's full.
Very shallow.
When it's full.
So if you come in and take, say, a football field, and you dredge just that portion, in theory, you're actually lowering the whole level of the lake.
That's what he's saying.
Correct.
Unless
the
you put
marina
the mud
levels
back
go down.
into a spot.
Right.
Yeah.
So you can't, as you go, you would have to fill in parts, or by the time you get halfway through, the other half of the lake's going to be gone.
Yeah, you have to displace the volume that you're creating somehow. Or else, you either are destroying wetlands. There's thousands of acres of wetlands, Provo Bay and Goshen Bay, that we can't just leave high and dry through an intentional effort.
Yeah.
We would have to create all of those somewhere else, and that's a challenge. So
Can't we just do the state a favor and just bury Linden and Pleasant Grove? I mean, it would really help the overall value of every surrounding place. Sounds like two birds, one stone.
I'm thinking Saratoga, but go on.
We saved $800,000, no more G, and we moved the mud out of the lake. What's the problem?
Come on.
That's perfect.
yeah,
I was just thinking though, where could we put a mountain? Like,
we don't need
right in
more
the middle
mountains.
of the lake.
Yeah, in the middle of the lake.
Yeah.
But
We
like,
should have a resort
with a
like a
city on top.
Sandals right in the middle of the lake.
With little grass huts.
I know before the islands idea over the last 5 years, a lot of people were talking about, I don't know what but there was an intention or a thought that they would put a highway right across the lake. And is that something that's still in the works? Does that seem like not a very effective idea?
There's been at least a couple fairly serious proposals to put a highway or a road across the lake that failed. That said, UDOT has it on their 30-year funded plan, so not their long range anymore. They put it on their actual, we're going to need to do this in the next 30 years. And the justification for that is today there's vehicle traffic counters down at Spanish Fork on I-15. They count about 170,000 vehicles passing through every day. They're predicting that Utah Lake, the west side of the lake, and traffic heading to, let's say, middle of the county, Provo area, they're predicting that there will be 130,000 cars per day needing to make that
Wow.
that crossing. And so they see it as a major need, especially as we see Saratoga Springs starting to fill in.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
How's that going to work? There's no water on that side of the lake. Like, we're already in a state that has no water. We're fighting everything. And we're going to go put that many houses over there? Like, who's the only city that benefits from that is Provo by funneling those cars to their basically freeway or whatever.
Well, where do they want to put it? Is it like going right down the middle of the lake? Is it toward the west side by Saratoga? Like, where?
I don't know that UDOT has finalized.
Okay.
My understanding was that it was somewhere around 800 north in Provo and then Pelican Point-ish over on the Saratoga side. So the south end of
Where the golf
existing
course is.
development.
Yeah, a little further south.
Yeah.
There's a rock quarry there. It's where we went shooting forever ago.
Yeah.
It's the point at which not only Saratoga Springs city boundary ends, but it's also a geological feature where you've got a kind of a ridge that heads all the way up to the
Mhm.
lake.
Somewhat
And
slightly peninsula.
water won't flow north beyond that point if you were to develop south of
Yeah.
that.
Well, and there's no houses from that spot besides like there's a couple random,
farms, yeah.
but there's no houses south of that.
Correct.
Yeah, that nothing up until I think Alberta, which is the town that's so far southwest corner of the lake.
Right.
We have our largest dairy farm just south of there, that the Bateman's own. I toured recently. It's phenomenal. You should see it.
Yeah.
Huh.
So where
Huge.
does
You can see it from Redwood.
You
right?
can, yeah.
Yeah.
Where does
But the
chocolate-
operation is fascinating to observe.
Do they have chocolate milk cows?
We were out in the general loading area, and all the cows are these speckled, white and black
The
cows.
quintessential ones you
Yeah,
see on the,
typical. And we go
all
into
of
the
the
milking
Chick-fil-A
barn,
cows?
and the entire barn is filled with Jersey cows. These beautiful brown,
Yeah.
black-eyed cows. It was fascinating.
Huh.
So they have
those
both.
are the chocolate milk ones.
Those are the
Oh,
chocolate
okay.
milk.
Okay.
Yeah,
Any strawberry milk ones or
none that I saw.
Any 1% cows there? Because they're real skinny, right? Sorry. Is this a dairy podcast? Sorry.
yeah. So there's definitely a lot of Utah Lake forever has been a major point of spot of recreation, but you see a lot less nowadays. That a lot of boats.
If you
can't
went there
even
this
go.
summer, there was none.
Yeah.
Because the lake was too low to be able to do anything.
Yeah, you can't really if you've got a large fin on the bottom of your boat or
Everything's
Or a
surfing now,
small
and
fin.
surfing you're trying to drag like 4 to 5 feet of water. So you have 4 to 5 feet. On average, it's 10. You're going to be hitting a bar every pass,
yeah,
and not my kind of bar.
not in
the
Utah
bad
Valley.
kind.
Well,
They're none in Utah Valley.
One of my guilty pleasures, I watched the YouTube guys, Diesel Brothers.
Yeah.
They went out onto the lake recently, this last springtime, coming into fall, whatever, and they rescued a boat that was stuck on a bar that was completely it looked like it was
High-centered.
dry docked, and they're all walking out there. There's probably 2 inches of water that this
It's crazy.
boat was stuck on, and they got it cleared off, and that's their whole thing is like rescues like that. But I'm guessing that's been happening quite a bit with people that don't necessarily know. They drop their boat and just go out and have a good time.
Yeah, when the lake gets shallow, I know that this Utah Lake State Park, they put up some warning signs, and when they talk to folks, they say, "Be careful."
No need for life jackets.
Use that depth finder. No,
Yeah.
actually, yeah, that's another topic we should talk about. But
Jake.
but no, there are some areas that are recommended that even on a lower water year you're pretty safe to run your boat. But some of our bays, I've been into Provo Bay when it's about at the level that we're at right now, and we were on an airboat just gliding along in an inch of water.
Wow.
So, yeah, there's a lot of the lake that becomes unusable when we're at this low level.
And we don't currently have any easily actionable solutions to that right now, right?
No. I mean, it doesn't help that we're in a 1,200-year drought.
Right.
You know, we have not, had such little water coming into our mountains in quite some time. So we're crossing all of our fingers and toes and hoping that what we're seeing in our mountains today continues to fall for the next few months and we can recover some of that. It's not unique to Utah Lake. A lot of our reservoirs are at or near empty.
Yeah, some have completely dried out.
I thought Governor Cox prayed that away. I thought that was solved. One weekend of prayer.
Don't you see all the snow in the mountains?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He crushed it.
You're welcome.
So far, so good.
It's a 5-year plan.
My basement is all water.
It is.
Yeah.
Because you don't have a basement.
Yeah.
Oh.
You don't explain the joke.
Oh. So I grew up in American Fork near Utah Lake. So I went to Utah Lake quite a bit, played in it. It was notoriously stinky, muddy, and
rumored to be toxic.
Yeah, but we liked playing in it.
Yep.
When I lived back east, I went up to Maine to Sebago Lake, which is probably a comparatively sized lake, and it's clear as can be with gravel in the bottom, so beautiful. You can paddle way out there and see way deep into the water. It's so clear. My question is, if we let these billionaires come in and dredge it all up and make their islands, is it actually going to be really nice like that? Or is that even desirable? Is turning that into a rockier lake going to ruin the ecosystem of the lake or whatever?
I don't think that there's any plans by anyone ever to change what's on the bottom of the lake per se.
Oh, okay.
So I think that our goal is to make it a clearer lake.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't take much. You think about Lake Powell. People love Lake Powell. People love Lake Mead, and they're a green, right?
Yeah.
But it's just a green that you're okay with.
Yeah.
And so we're kind of shooting for just turning the dial enough that Utah Lake, it doesn't have blooms all summer long, and that the water is clear enough that people aren't fazed by it.
Right.
It's a valley bottom lake. It's always going to be somewhat murky.
Right.
It's always going to be a somewhat shallow lake, but there's more that can be done. You can, as soon as you get plant life back in the bottom of the lake, that clears it up some. If you can get some of the mollusks back into the lake, they filter and can pull a lot of the turbidity out of the water. So it can definitely be clearer, but we're not shooting for something that looks like a bay in Lake Tahoe or what have you.
Yeah, yeah. Right. And is that just a matter of ordering a bunch of mollusks and dumping them in there, or how?
Kinda. We have them in other reservoirs in the state, and so they can be collected. There's a process to that. You've got to make sure that they're healthy and things like that. But we can get those back in the lake. We've got a project right now to have a pilot area in Provo Bay where we reintroduce some of those in a wetland area that we're creating, just to give it a try and see if we can get them to reestablish. Once they reestablish, then they can kind of grow out and have an impact. But they're impressive natural filters. I mean, one little mollusk can filter, I can't remember, 50, 60 gallons of water a day. And you put, I kind of hope secretly that they proliferate as much as our less desirable quagga mussel that we read about at every water body.
That's the one they're checking the boats for.
Zebra mussels and quagga mussels. They're the invasive ones that we for sure don't want in Utah Lake.
Yeah.
But mollusks, you'd think that, we're hopeful that they can, succeed in there. They used to live in the lake, and presumably the introduction of carp and the destruction of the bed of the lake is what kind of caused them to die off in the lake. They couldn't handle as much murkiness or mud that was being filtered through their bodies.
Are we still trying to recover from Geneva still?
Not so much. A few tests have been done especially when we were looking at getting rid of carp. There was the proposition, hey, we could sell these as food fish, process them, and so they wanted to make sure that there wasn't high loads of heavy metals in the lake. So they did some tests out in front of where the Geneva Steel plant was, and they were surprised to find that there was very little remaining from a heavy metal standpoint from Geneva Steel.
And when you say very little, like it's okay to go fish there and eat
Yeah,
the fish.
fish are fine. Fish have there's an advisory on catfish and carp, and it just says that you're only supposed to eat a certain amount per week.
Oh, okay.
Which is a pretty typical thing that you'll find in any freshwater body. The rules for freshwater fish that you catch yourself are a little more stringent than they are for commercial fishing. So tuna on the shelf in the store probably has more mercury than what you're pulling out as a freshwater fish.
Because I'd wondered about that because I caught a big carp down in the Provo Harbor a few weeks ago, and I just left it there because I thought you can't eat them. But
no, you can eat them. Depending on who you talk to, that some folks actually would choose a carp over pretty much any other fish and have some fantastic recipes for them.
Huh.
I've heard other people say that they've tried it and weren't as much of a fan.
Yeah,
so.
and didn't like it. Well, I'll have to try the next one.
Maybe we should work with Associated Foods, and right next to the albacore tuna, you've got your chunk light carp in a can. And
The chicken of Utah Lake.
Because the thing is, they're an invasive species, right? The carp.
That we introduced.
Right.
So we introduced them as a food fish, as a solution, because we'd overfished Utah Lake when the settlers arrived, and they did great, especially during the drought of the 30s.
Right.
Carp didn't die off, and then they had the entire lake bed when it filled up again to proliferate, and we've been trying to get rid of them ever since.
Yeah, now it's like a destroy order, right? You don't throw them back if you catch one.
Yep.
So.
I've been fascinated by. I used to work in Provo, right by the Provo River, and sometimes I go for a walk up the river, and just you've got like 18 to 24-inch long carp in schools swimming up that river. Thousands of them.
Oh yeah,
I can just imagine how many there are. In the lake.
You can catch them pretty easy. The lures that are like pretty much a 6-inch minnow.
Mm-hmm.
They'll go after those like crazy. I found.
Really?
Yeah.
And this has been the American Fishing Podcast.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Outdoors with American.
Well, because I for years I always see them like in the river, and I throw lures at them all the time. Never get them to even like do anything, but those big minnows they'll grab, and it's a blast for kids because it's like a
big fish,
15-pound fish
Yeah,
you're
that's
pulling
cool.
out of there. So
easy catch.
yeah.
there's a commercial fisherman, the Loy family. The father that is now the late Bill Loy told me one day that if you want to catch carp, you just put blueberry bagels on your hook.
Oh, really?
And they'll go for them all day long.
Oh,
So
wow.
Wait, carp are from New York?
apparently, who knew?
They all have
Long
yarmulkes
Island. Yeah.
Yeah. So, do you work much with the Great Salt Lake commissions of organizations in any way?
We interact on occasion.
Mm-hmm.
So once a year they'll have an annual assessment type meeting, and we'll attend that. They don't have a commission. They could probably use a better structure of governance than they have today. They have the Great Salt Lake Advisory Committee.
Right.
But it's for a water body as large as it is, with the issues and unique, type of lake that is, a terminal lake. It could use more. It could use some unified effort.
Yeah. Because for anyone that doesn't know the geology, and correct me if I'm wrong, Utah Lake feeds into the Great Salt Lake through the Jordan River, right?
Correct. Yep.
Yeah.
There's a number of tributaries that go into the Great Salt Lake, but there is nothing that leaves the Great Salt Lake.
Yeah. It's a dead point. So as Jordan River goes along, the dead bodies get in there, and then it ends up in Great Salt Lake, right?
So we're going to call it a cemetery as well then.
Basically is. Because being in Salt Lake, that we hear a lot of similar discussions about the Great Salt Lake that we're talking about with Utah Lake right now. And so, yeah, it does seem that sounds like they could get better organized and work on some of the stuff that you guys are working on to, I don't know, figure things out to better the ecosystem.
For sure. And we do partner with the Jordan River Commission.
Oh, okay.
I'm a board member on that, and so we collaborate a lot on coming up with solutions to improve their river corridor. They have a lot of the same issues that we do around the lake. So,
And now I apologize about the dead body joke in your commissions, your councils. But I live in West Valley, so like that's just
Where
a
all
joke.
the dead bodies are.
Yeah, it's
Where they all
actually
settle?
true. It
Yeah.
really does happen a lot, but it's actually cool. There's some walkways that are around there that are wonderful, but anyway, yeah, the Great Salt Lake it seems like it's been worse shape than the Utah Lake, but I have no idea. I mean,
it is in ecological collapse right now. It's not a minor problem. It's a major problem. It's a major hub on the Pacific Flyway for birds. And the ecosystem is collapsing. So what are we going? This could have huge ramifications on the migratory birds.
right.
Utah Lake, where maybe we can be the savior to a degree for birds coming through this area. A lot of them do visit Utah Lake, but many of them rely on the Great Salt Lake, and so it can't just disappear. We can't let it just evaporate and throw a
Right.
top coat on it that won't be dusty.
I mean, every
we
time
have to fill it with those play balls, right?
The black ones,
Yeah.
yeah.
in
keep
from
it from
Southern California,
evaporating. Yeah.
that's why we started doing that.
I was going to ask you about that because you see on the news they say like, look at Utah Lake now, but then look at it like 10 years ago or whatever, and it's like almost double the size. Or Salt Lake, I'm sorry, I should be talking about. But when I get on Google Earth and scroll back like in their history, it does seem like it has fluctuated. Like I can't remember the exact years, but I want to say in like 2001 or so, it was really low, comparatively low. And I'm basing this purely off of Google Earth or whatever. But and then before that it was. So it does seem, at least in the last few decades, it's fluctuated. Is that likely to happen, or are we really on like a downturn that's like going to be really bad?
You're probably beyond my scope of expertise here,
Yeah.
but I do know that there has been great fluctuations in the early 80s, as you probably heard.
85,
These
84,
giant
95.
pumps were purchased and installed to prevent the Great Salt Lake from flooding the freeway and,
Oh,
and
really?
the railroad tracks.
multi-million dollars.
Yeah, and they
Oh.
were never used.
Never
So
turned them on once.
the flood receded, and then we've never been back to that point again for the Great
Huh.
Salt Lake. Utah Lake has a 10 or so year fluctuation where we've got a chart that goes back to, I think, 1894, and we get it full, and then it goes empty, and it gets full, and
So
and
where
maybe
are we
not
at?
fully empty, but right
Where
now
are we
we're
at on that
6.5
10-year
feet
cycle?
below full.
So where are we at on that cycle, though, that you're saying there's like a 10-year? I'm guessing we're obviously on the low end of that.
We're on the low end, and this winter is going to be amazing, and we're going to skyrocket and be up to full by next year.
But is that's obviously what everyone hopes.
And
but
he's
is that-
crossing
is
his
that-
fingers when he
I know.
said that for the listeners.
Crossing your fingers.
Yeah.
But is that actually what the 10-year cycle is showing from 1894?
We sort of had a blip just a few years ago where the lake got nearly full. What was it, 2 years ago? They were draining some water off of Utah Lake in anticipation of spring runoff and needing to have a place for it to go when they started draining as fast as they could Jordanelle and Deer Creek.
Wow.
And so it's not always a perfect cycle. And so
Well, because you have the reservoirs up the canyon that feed Utah Lake, so it is somewhat man-controlled as well. It's not just
to a degree, there was a study done maybe a decade ago that evaluated the impact of those reservoirs on Utah Lake, and it's kind of compared what the natural fluctuations would have been compared in contrasted that to now that we have these two reservoirs, how much has it changed?
right.
And it was within 1.5 feet to 2 feet.
Yeah.
Just mirroring what would have happened. It can delay it. So if we have a big water year, you can slow it down coming down the canyon, so you
Right.
don't have flooding, and you can hang on to as much as you can.
Wow.
But it doesn't have a massive impact on
No.
water retention, or I guess. But other than the size and scale of the lake being obviously a big problem, what do you see as like the next biggest problem you face? Like, is it political issues? Is it environmental? Like, what is it funding? Like, what do you run into? What's stopping us from having like a beautiful lake, I guess, is the best question.
I would say first, and a large gap between first and second, funding.
Yeah.
The proposed, let's just for comparison's sake, the island proposal was a $6.5 billion proposal.
Boo. That's a lot of money, right?
Historically, for the last decade or more, the Utah Lake Commission has operated on a few $100,000 a year, and then we pull in grants wherever we can to fund just about everything that we do from a management standpoint. The Lake Authority is now funded with $1.5 million a year from the state, so that very much expands our ability to do more good work. But when you compare that to what is needed, any little project on the lake can burn through millions. The new marina down at Saratoga Springs, the one new jetty was in the multiple of millions. And this is a 5-acre marina on a 97,000 acre lake. And so when we want to get rid of the invasive Phragmites, this tall rush type plant on the shorelines of the lake, we spend close to $500,000 a year through grant dollars removing that. And little by little, we're at about 70% that is seemingly coming back in native type vegetation instead of the invasive. So little by little, it's successful, but any incremental improvement that we hope to see on the lake requires a pretty big investment.
Wow.
So I guess I didn't answer your other question. Second place, third place, making sure that we get the science right. How do we prioritize the projects? How do we make sure that we have a better positive impact than causing harm? And so it takes some work to make sure that we do it right.
Yeah. So obviously we've essentially put the kibosh on building islands. The idea of a highway going through the lake is still expected by UDOT, but there are no direct plans or to do it in the near future. Dredging the lake is an incredibly complicated process. What can we do? Like, what can the average person do right now, if anything, to at least assist in the beautification of the lake?
I would say there's two major things that people can do. One, be supportive of what we're doing. Occasionally, we'll get attacked for one reason or another for doing it not quite like people would like to see it. Recognize that we're doing our best, but we also have an opportunity for people to adopt access points. We've got 27 public access points. The program reached its maximum because we had so much interest that we added sections of trail in some other locations. So we've got 45, 41 of those are adopted now. And all that requires is 3 times a year, usually in the summer months, the group or the individual goes out to that location, picks up trash, kind of tidies it up, and keeps it looking nice so that when people go down, what we want more than anything is that anytime people go to the lake, they can have a good experience.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Historically, people would go to the more remote access points, and there had been parties there or what have you, and they're trashed, and you just don't go to a place that you already have some nervousness about more than once and have a bad experience and never plan to go back.
Right.
So adopt a shoreline program. It's on our website, utahlake.org. Sign up. Get involved. We do a ton of volunteering type activities outside of even that over the year, and that's a fun opportunity to do our part to keep it looking nice.
And if you're like Trent, you could pray for rain.
Yes.
He's praying every day.
Yeah,
He does these dances too.
I do.
Those dances.
The room's a little small.
With all those-
I would show you.
The goats.
Yeah, I need dollars and tables, but I do them. Yes.
Dancing for rain.
Eric, is there anything, a final note that you maybe haven't mentioned that you'd like to leave?
No,
Yes.
we're just. It's pretty exciting to have the Utah Lake Authority up and running, funded, working on branding of the lake, working on pulling together some of the experts from around the nation that are going to be part of the team for developing this plan for us, and then working with the legislature and a governor who are really excited about working on the lake. Just a couple days ago, we met with the governor. A few weeks ago, we met with the Senate president and the Speaker of the House, and they're excited to get behind making Utah Lake something that people can love. And so this is a unique point in time. For decades, people turned their back on the lake.
Yep.
They built as far away as they could. They pushed all the industrial down to the lake. And I think that time has passed, and people are willing to start putting in the investment needed to make it something that they want to.
You got Vineyard going there where Geneva used to be, and
Their city
Saratoga.
center. Vineyard City Center is going to come right out to the lakeshore.
Sweet.
And then they're going to have this beautiful boardwalk and
so
pier
cool.
system. I just think the perceptions of the past are going to fade, and as long as we can keep up our efforts to improve the lake, hopefully it won't disappoint, and we'll be able to get people in love with it after all.
And what you're talking about, because we have some listeners not from the area, is that it is the weirdest thing traveling around. Utah Lake and the Great Salt Lake are not, or have not in the past, been desirable lakes to be around. For some reason, you go to the Carolinas and a lakeshore thing is like the best, period.
Oh, yeah.
Where here it was like, oh, you're by the lake? Ugh.
Yeah, they've got a lot of
So-
new houses now in Saratoga they're like lake houses.
Yeah. They have
With- they
docks
got,
or whatever. and-
they're close to the dock there, and
Yeah, but I think it's cool that the organization that you were part of is changing that around, because the truth is, it can be a great body of water. It's got a reputation that needs to be corrected, and rebranding and stuff is pretty cool to me.
yeah, I've got an idea. You should build a huge screen in the middle of the lake and have drive-in movies on the lake.
Okay,
With
So-
paddle boats.
So you dock your
Movie on
boat.
the water for
Yeah, you dock your
600,000.
boat. You got a screen on both sides. Everyone's watching. You got, and have it be a huge fundraising experience. And
But
you've got a bunch of billboards around it that companies pay for.
some of the
to
good
bring in
things is
millions.
during certain times of year you don't even need a boat. You just take your
Yeah,
Jeep.
you just walk
Just drive the Jeep
walk
out
out
there.
to the screen and watch.
That's a
Um,
bad joke.
As long as we're throwing out ideas, I
Okay.
got one for you.
Let's hear it.
Here we
So,
go. Buckle in.
In Boston, they float a big giant barge out
I know where
in
this
the,
is going.
in the
Oh, yeah.
river and shoot fireworks for the 4th of July.
It should
Yeah.
be good for the fish.
So I want you to do that.
Will you do that? Will you
It
come
can
in
happen
right now?
Vineyard City actually does a fireworks show, or at least they've done one a couple times. There's permits that are available for it. It's very doable. We just need to get the right sponsors, and
Because you could jack up the price for all the marinas that time, and that could be your funding. Everyone come
Because you
out.
can't see fireworks from a distance.
No, but not like this.
Uh,
You've been there.
I
you
have
know.
been there.
Yeah, it was
Give
good.
everyone a flaming arrow.
We can diet
$30
green.
for a flaming arrow. They
Yeah.
shoot onto
fireworks.
the barge.
Fireworks are just better over the water. Like you
Agreed.
see all the reflection
twice.
and everything. Yeah,
and
exactly.
and they echo better.
2 for 1.
They echo, and I'm sure all that ash that falls down is really good for the fish and all that.
Well, it's good. Yeah, it's got
Yeah.
carbon in it.
Yeah.
You can till it in, and it's good for the veggies.
Mhm.
I like it. Let's do that one. But
Yeah, well, thanks for being on the show with us.
yeah, we've liked having you.
It's been a great conversation. Hopefully, raised a little bit of awareness in the Utah Lake Commission and help maybe sparked some interest in some people. And we appreciate everybody listening. We hope you voted. We hope that you thanked a veteran in your life. And next week, after we air this, will be Thanksgiving. So hug a Native American and eat some pumpkin pie.
What just happened?
Jeez, Jake.
And also
Final
go
thoughts.
to, what did you say it was? UtahLake.org.
Utah Lake.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And volunteer.
Yeah, you can
Adopt-
adopt a portion of the lake. We still have some spots available, right?
or you can donate to the life jacket program. We have a loaner program for life jackets. You mentioned not needing life jackets earlier. Randomly, a shallow lake actually produces bigger waves, especially a big wide lake it is.
And when your feet are stuck in the mud, that's a problem.
It is.
There was
It
like a couple
absolutely
people who
is.
had to get saved last year, right? Got like stuck out there. And like
two,
a canoe.
two girls died,
Yeah,
and they think they had life jackets.
they
I think, or maybe they didn't.
this is why we did this program is
Yeah.
in
That's right.
remembrance of them.
yeah.
But so far this summer is the first summer we've had the stations out. We had 400 life jackets that we had available for people to borrow, and some volunteers that bring them out, and they are wet just about every time they're out there or missing. So
Oh.
it's a good sign
They're being used.
Yeah.
people are using them.
That's good.
Oh, good. I like
Cool.
it.
Well, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening. Go to patreon.com/AmericanForked if you want to help fund the show.
Yeah.
And follow us on Instagram.
How are you guys asking for more money but doing fewer shows?
We're asking
there-
for
We're doing
25%.
fewer shows because we don't have enough money.
No, we're doing
Same
like our shows are better now. Didn't you notice?
Have we teased the musical, or should we?
Oh
not?
no.
We're not talking
Okay.
about that.
Yeah.
Like,
We won't tease the musical.
The end.
Thanks for listening.
good night. Good day.
The assailant and away from police. NBC News learning new details about the moments police arrived. Sources familiar with what unfolded in the Pelosi residence now revealing when officers responded to the high-priority call, they were seemingly unaware they'd been called to the home of the Speaker of the House. After a knock and announce, the front door was opened by Mr. Pelosi. The 82-year-old did not immediately declare an emergency or try to leave his home, but instead began walking several feet back into the foyer toward the assailant and away from police. It's unclear if the 82-year-old was already injured or what his mental state was, say sources. According to court documents, when the officer asked what was going on, defendant smiled and said everything's good. But instantaneously, a struggle ensued as police clearly saw David DePape strike Paul Pelosi in the head with a hammer. After tackling the suspect, officers rushed to Mr. Pelosi, who was lying in a pool of blood.
Law enforcement officials tell us the bottom line here is this was a terrifying situation. We still don't know exactly what unfolded between Mr. Pelosi and the suspect. For the 30